Thank you, Bob, so much for
you,
being
Liz.
here. I want you all just to, and don't freak out, but look around the room and see this crowd that's been coming to this amazing Semafor event. Thank you, Semafor. It's just amazing voices. And understand this. Every 34 seconds, someone in the US is going to have a heart attack. And 50%, up to 50% of even just people in this room will get heart disease. Don't freak out, the croissants are still delicious and I'm eating one after this. But when you talk about the drugs that are there to mitigate that and to solve it, the process of getting it from concept to a doctor's prescription pad is on average 15 years. So you're talking discovering preclinical testing, 3 to 6 years. The trial phase, 6 to 7 years, and then regulatory review by the FDA, another 1 to 2 years. That's if there are enough FDA regulators left, RFK Jr. But we'll get to that in just a second. But only 1 in 5,000 compounds ever make it to market. Amgen has been able to get Repatha to market, and Repatha solves heart disease. It solves heart attacks and strokes. So Bob, I want to talk to you not just about how long the process has taken, but the amazing developments in AI and machine learning that are markedly speeding that up.
Well, thank you, Liz. Heart disease is the leading challenge that we face on the planet, not just in the developed world, but really all over the globe. As Liz said, unfortunately, in this country, every 33, 34 seconds, somebody has a heart attack. Now, most of those heart attacks are caused by something known as atherosclerosis, which we're all familiar with as the buildup of plaques inside our arteries. And that, in turn, is very often caused by people having levels of their LDL cholesterol that are too high. And over time, that LDL cholesterol gives rise to a plaque, and the plaque gives rise to the heart disease that you're referring to. And we have a medicine that's called Repatha, which profoundly lowers that LDL cholesterol, and in lowering the LDL cholesterol, lowers the risk of heart attack and stroke. But medicines like that take many years to develop, and the average now in our industry is 10 to 15 years to develop a medicine, as you said. And the average investment in a molecule like that before it gets to market is about $2.5 billion. So the good news is that AI can help us both identify the patients that are at risk of cardiac disease, so we can match the therapies with the people that are at greatest risk. We talk about it at Amgen as predict and prevent. We can predict very clearly which of us in society are at greatest risk of a heart attack or stroke, and we can prevent that. We can try to match the individuals who are at risk with the therapies that will mitigate the risk. And AI will be useful in doing that. It will also be useful in helping in each of the stages along our drug discovery and development process. So we're optimistic about what AI will do, but I wouldn't want you to think that it is going to turn night into day. It will be additive for sure. It should enable us to move more quickly. It should enable us to move more confidently. And I think all that's good news, because as your starting thought reflects, we need more innovation, not less, as a society, and this will help us get more.
I was talking to somebody in the startup AI, healthcare, medicine, drug development space, and he told me that one of the areas, see, part of the problem that it takes so long, correct me if I'm wrong, is the trial phase, getting patients who A, fit the profile for the problem that you're trying to solve, but also B, internationally you're trying to get them to agree to do it. AI speeds that up by searching doctors' databases, and it's now down to just weeks, what would have taken sometimes a year to find a test group, correct?
Well, again, AI is being used for sure in the clinical development process, and it's being useful in helping us choose the right sites to initiate trials in, choose the right physicians to have as sponsors for the trials in the various sites. And in some diseases, helping find the right patients, again, to match the patients with the therapy. But this is one of the many things that's happening to try to speed the process of drug development. Drug development, as I said earlier, is a lengthy process. It's an expensive process. So if we're able to move more swiftly by identifying the right patients, getting them in the trials more quickly, that enables us ultimately to get drugs approved and in the hands of patients more quickly.
A lot of people who are here are in industries where you try something, maybe work on it a couple of weeks or a couple of months, or maybe a year. And look, if you have to pull the plug, fine. But the investment, and more than a decade. I'm sure you have examples of drugs in the past that Amgen has brought to market that have just taken forever. And in turn, psychologically, does machine learning and the speed at which it can now make this happen, has it made you gutsier when it comes to trying to find causes and drugs that 5 years ago you wouldn't have taken the chance on because you said it was just going to take too long?
Well, I would say yes, indirectly, but I would say the biggest factor instilling confidence in us when we pursue a molecule is having genetic validation for the target. And so we are the world's leader in investing in human genetics to understand biologic pathways that give rise to disease. And when we have genetic evidence of the relevance of a pathway, we move much more confidently than we would without it. So machine learning and AI definitely help us to find such pathways because the human data that we have to interrogate is vast. And so having the tools of machine learning and AI in order to seize or identify the right pathways clearly is helpful for us. And then there's another way in which we're able to move more confidently thanks to AI, and that is often what happens before we enter preclinical and certainly clinical testing is we have many different molecules that we design that appear to interdict appropriately with the target. But eliminating those that might have liabilities downstream in clinical development is a challenge.
Right.
And machine learning and AI have better enabled us to choose what we think can be the winning molecules.
So machines help certainly speed up the molecular binding process and looking at that, but the FDA still moves at its own pace. And in this administration, we have an FDA that has definitely been skinnied down. They've missed a couple of deadlines on approving different drugs, on looking at the next season's flu vaccine. Have you sensed anything when it comes to a sort of a slowdown because it is a thinner FDA at this point?
Well, I'm not aware of anything in our business that would reflect a slowdown from the FDA. I would say, if anything, so far, we've been encouraged by the responsiveness that we have found from FDA in this period when there's been so much discussion about the disruption. So far, it's not proving to be an issue in our interactions with the FDA, and I'm grateful for that. But I am conscious that there's a lot of disruption and mindful of the effect that might have, not just on our business, but more generally on the industry.
Well, let's go to sort of at a higher sort of fundamental level versus the timing of this. You guys are developing Maritide, which could really be a game changer in this very hot GLP-1 obesity drug race that everybody's jumping into, or at least trying. So this would be a monthly injection versus a weekly injection. You're in trials. Tell me how close you are.
Well, you're right. We have an approach to obesity and chronic weight management that we're very excited about. It's different from what's otherwise available. So we have a molecule that addresses two pathways that we think are relevant for those that are struggling with obesity and overweight. And they are pathways that are increasingly familiar. They're so-called incretins. The thing that's different about our medicine is that it's built off an antibody backbone. And because it's an antibody or a large biologic molecule, its half-time in the body is longer than what our competitors' approaches reflect. So our competitors have advanced therapies that require weekly injections. We've said that we will have a medicine that we think is monthly or less frequent, and that's what we're studying in clinical trials. And to your earlier point about clinical trials and the pace of enrollment, I'm very encouraged by the speed at which the trials around our molecule are enrolling, and I think that reflects both the considerable need for innovation in this space, but also the potentially attractive differentiation in our approach.
So the Secretary of Health and Human Services, RFK Jr., has expressed skepticism and sort of negative feelings toward different things, whether it's vaccines, who knows, whatever. But he has specifically told Fox that he's not thrilled with anti-obesity drugs. And I think his quote was, if we just gave every man, woman, and child 3 healthy meals a day, we would cure obesity overnight and diabetes overnight. I'm guessing you disagree with something like that.
Well, I don't disagree with the idea of everyone having 3 healthy meals. I do unfortunately challenge the notion that we would be able to eliminate obesity in that way. Maybe some fraction of it we would be able to eliminate in that way. Unfortunately, obesity exists at the intersection of genetics and our environment. Yeah. So he's addressing a piece of the challenge, which is the environment that we confront all around the world. You know, we're never very far from calories, and unfortunately, many of us have genetics that program us to consume more calories than we need to get through the day, and to store those extra calories as fat. And so what might once upon a time have been an advantage becomes a disadvantage in the setting of carrying around excess weight for years and years and years. And that excess weight gives rise to heart disease, kidney disease, liver disease, and a whole variety of other things. And the work that we and others are doing in the field now are exposing the benefits of interacting with the biology in a way to reduce the desire that people otherwise have to consume more calories. And in doing so, we're exposing the other health benefits that come from that. So, you know, however we get there as a society, you know, if he has a magic wand, he can wave over this challenge that we face in society, he should wave it. But however we get there, if we want to reduce the extent of chronic disease in society today, which is a huge tax on productivity and economic growth, if we want to achieve that, I think we're going to need to advance innovation, and I'm excited about what our approach to this might represent for the field.
Almost everybody up here and in the green room and out there is talking about the effect of Donald Trump's tariffs from day to day. It has been just a wild peripatetic ride, depending on the headline. I mean, this morning he told Time magazine, well, he told them Tuesday, but it's out this morning, that he'd consider it a victory if at the end of the year, the U.S. has 50% tariffs on all incoming goods. So we're waiting to hear about what happens with pharma. However, as Jon Stewart of the Comedy Central channel says, it's Donald Trump's world and we're just cowering in it. But that said, you guys are right in the middle of an area where he wants to repatriate jobs. He wants to bring back manufacturing to the U.S. You are there already. You're in North Carolina, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, California, and Ohio. What are you doing? Can you make any news today about what you are doing that would please people at the White House?
Well, I hope it will please people in the White House. It's certainly going to please people in Central Ohio, where we're announcing later today that we're going to add about $1 billion to our facility there. So we'll be pushing up on about $1.5 billion of investment in Central Ohio and adding another several hundred jobs. So we'll expect to have about 750 people engaged in our biologics manufacturing in Central Ohio in the very near future. And this follows on a $1 billion incremental investment that we announced in North Carolina earlier in the year. And it links to part of your question, Liz, which is that we were able to make the decision to invest in the United States following the tax cuts in 2017, the Trump tax cuts, which enabled us to invest heavily in our biologics manufacturing in the United States. And since that time, we've invested more than $5 billion in North Carolina, Ohio, Rhode Island, California, in expanding our capabilities in this country. And that investment in turn gave rise to about $12 billion of economic activity. So, in a long life cycle industry like ours, what we need is some predictability. The tax cuts gave us that, enabled us to make this considerable investments that we have in the U.S. And we, and I suspect others in the industry, will look for some clarity both on tariffs and taxes so that we can confidently make the investments that we need in order to make the medicines for the people around the world who need them.
But in the meantime, it's a wild ride.
It is a wild ride. That's fair enough.
Have you been watching the headlines very closely?
Not so closely as you, but I have been paying attention to the fact that it's a peripatetic ride, as you said earlier, And, again, in a long life cycle industry like ours, we just need to have the dust settle so we can be clear about what the appropriate investments are for us to make. So we know that the administration and the president have a clear agenda here, and we'll adapt accordingly once we know where the dust settles on their agenda.
You're being kind by saying clear agenda. We're waiting to see some of the clarity coming. So today, the announcement, what time?
We're leaving for Columbus shortly, so we will be making an announcement in a couple hours' time about the incremental investment in Columbus. We'll be cutting the ribbon this afternoon.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bob Radford of course, Amgen. And I just want to say, by the way, this is marking the end of the morning session, but everybody just come back in just a couple of minutes because we will be starting back up again for the Semafor Global Economic Conference.
Thank you. Thank you.